I did this presentation, panel discussion called "The Power of Yes: Developing Skills for a Career as a Professional Musician or in the Music Industry." And see, the thing is that if you say yes, even if you have questions about it, it always potentially can turn into something.
Yeah.
But when you say no, you know what you got.
Yeah.
You got nothing.
Yeah.
But the thing is that in order to be able to say yes, you have to be, I mean, you got to be able to play. I mean, you have to have a skill set that allows you to be able to say yes. You don't want to show up and fall flat on your face.
Yeah.
So you got to be able to play. And these kind of situations, you don't know when they're going to happen. And so you got to be ready for it.
Mm-hmm.
You were ready.
Yeah, it was a very fortunate set of circumstances, but I totally agree with what you said there. I tell people all the time, I said, I never, unless my gut told me this is really going to suck, this is not going to be good, I never say no to anything, because you never know when you show up, like for an album project. It may not be a great album, but there might be somebody you meet on the date that you go, God, we got to work together more. You know, and I've found, especially drummers that I've met in all the years that nobody knew about. And I was telling people, call this guy. He's amazing, and their careers took off. Different, you know, the circumstances are different every time, and unless you commit to going in and saying yes and going for it, you'll never know those things. I remember Hal Blaine told me once years ago, he said when he first started, a producer said to him, now you can also play all percussion instruments, can you? And he said, oh, absolutely. Yeah, oh, great. And he said he had never played a percussion instrument before. He ran out and bought a whole bunch of crap and just sat home playing with it. And he came in, and also maybe because of his certain level of naivete of the instrument, did some cool things that were unexpected. But he said, if I'd have said no, it's like, I know people that are actors that, you know, they get asked, so you can ride a horse, can't you? They don't want to lose this gig. So they say, oh yeah. And they're scared shitless of horses, you know, like, you get around it, you figure it out. So,
yeah, that's what's up, man. That's what's
yeah.
up. Do you want to do this or not?
Yeah. Yeah. And there's times where I've done sessions where I know my limitations, and I'll get onto something, and I know I'm not the right guy for it. And I'll be real honest with him, and I'll go, look, I can fake my way through this, but there's this cat I know who eats this kind of stuff for breakfast every day, and just call him. You'll be much happier, you know, because to me, the most important thing at the end of the day is the project. You know, I'll find other projects to do, but I remember doing it was a project that Ahmet Erdogan was producing it. And it was a guy named, he's changed his name. This was really weird. But at the time, his name was Steve Kowalczyk. And it was kind of like an edgy Harry Connick before Harry was around. And we had this great band and everything. And he said, so they said, you know, can you play upright on it? I said, look, man, I've not touched upright in a long time, and I don't have a good bass anymore. I said, look, I have a Washburn AB45 that I ripped the frets out of. It's an acoustic Washburn bass. And I said, let me bring it in, take a listen to it. And if you like it, and as soon as I played it, they went, oh man, it sounds like an upright, but like kind of weird, like this album. So it was really cool. But there were two songs on it that I said, these really need upright on them. And it was when John Patitucci still lived in Los Angeles. So I said, look, let me just call John. I'm off the clock now. I'm going to hang out because I love John and it's good to hang with him. And he came down and burned these two songs just great. And, you know, so you know your limitations and all. And the funny thing was I work with a girl named Judith Owen, who's really an amazing, she's Welsh, but she's a singer-songwriter. She's married to Harry Shearer. From Spinal Tap, and he does voices on The Simpsons and all that. She's a remarkable artist, and we were doing a gig back in Boston, and Victor Wooten and Steve Bailey came to the gig. I invited him to the gig, And they said, "What are you doing tomorrow?" And I said, "Well, we have a day off, and then, so we're heading to New York for the next gig." They said, "Can you stay a day and then go to New York?" I said, "Sure." They said, "We'll throw together a master class type situation at Berkeley for it." And I said, "Sure." I was totally unprepared. Walk in, there's like 200 bass players sitting in the room. I'm like going, "Holy crap." But I told the story about Steve Kowalczyk, and then I got to the point of asking Q&A section, which is my favorite part of ever doing things. And this guy raises his hand, and I go, "Yeah, can I ask me a question?" And he goes, "I'm Steve Kowalczyk." And it was the guy, and he was teaching at Berkeley now. So it was so funny. So we got into a conversation about the whole process with, for the other students there. So it was pretty cool to have this segue into the actual guy I was, telling the story about. But it's it's such a journey that we're all on when it comes to this. And I'm kind of influenced as a bass player by everybody. I mean, to me, somebody who's picked up a bass and has only been playing 3 months might actually, in their limited skills, do something that I'm going, "God, I remember that now. I remember being in that place." And there's something you can glean from that. I mean, not everybody's going to be, Victor Wootens and guys like that. And I'm in my heart of hearts, I'm just a real meat and potatoes bass player. To me, everything is about the song. So, I just look for parts that'll support songs. I'm not a virtuoso player. I admire the guys who are monsters. I look at YouTube all the time, and I see 8-year-olds who scare the crap out of me in terms of their chops and stuff. But, I'm really instinctive when it comes to finding parts that fit songs. And so I've been able to build, my entire career on that level. And that seems to be the reason I get hired for work, is that,
You said something there about remembering what it was like to start over. Like what it was like when things were slow and you couldn't quite play anything yet.
Yeah.
And I have a hard time remembering that stuff for saxophone, because I started when I was young. I started when I was 6. But one of the benefits of me learning these other instruments is that I do remember starting on bass. I do remember what it was like to start playing guitar or to finally get serious about keyboard or something. I do remember those things. And that's actually been quite helpful for me in trying to understand my students and identify with certain, issues that they may be having or struggles. I remember when I was really, let's see here, I must have started teaching lessons. I started teaching lessons when I was pretty young, so maybe 12 or 13, and it was just like for some kids that were, younger than me, that were just kind of getting started and things. And I remember a student came over, and I gave him a couple lessons, and I'll tell you, after the second lesson, I was convinced that I never wanted to teach again. and the reason is that it seemed like music was really important to me, and it just seemed like, look, I gave you this stuff to practice. You didn't practice the stuff you were supposed to. You didn't do what you were supposed to do. And more than me personally being offended, I was like offended for the music or something. Like, how dare you not take this seriously? And it took me a while to start to recognize that not everybody is turned on by music that way. And you have a lot of people that play instruments and even many that play well, but they don't really, they're not like sort of
the passion isn't really
right.